Welcome to Complete Aviation Solutions, Deep Dive number 85. Great to have you with us. Our mission, like always, is to take all this information you've shared, the articles, the notes, everything, and really pull out the key stuff. We want to give you a clear, quick picture of some interesting moves happening in aviation right now.
Exactly. Think of it as us sorting through it all for you. We'll synthesize it, figure out what it actually means in the bigger picture of the industry today.
Right. And today, we're seeing how the industry is kind of future-proofing itself. We've got countries trying to launch new airlines, maybe with big partners. We've got existing airlines planning way, way ahead with fleet orders.
Years ahead.
And even companies sort of clearing the decks from past regulatory issues. Okay, let's dig in. Let's kick off in Africa, specifically Benin. The info you sent points to plans shaping up for a potential new national carrier. And the name that's popped up is, well, interesting, Amazon Airlines.
Amazon Airlines. Yeah, that definitely makes you pause. It looks like this surfaced after Benin's president visited Doha. There was a joint statement, May 19th, and the key phrase was expressing interest in enhancing cooperation in the aviation sector. That's specifically mentioned, including the possibility of cooperation between the two national carriers, Qatar Airways and Amazon Airlines.
Wow, connecting a potential startup with a giant like Qatar Airways straight away. That's ambitious. And yeah, they also mentioned maybe setting up a direct flight between Benin and Qatar. Important, though, the sources are clear. No formal agreement is actually signed yet. This is just expressed interest for now.
Right. And you need the background here. Benin's tried this before. There were plans for an Air Benin back in 2019 after some airport work. Then in 2021, the government actually bought a stake in a private company, Benin Airlines. That one started as Air Taxi Benin in 2016.
Okay, and that current Benin Airlines, the sources say it's headed by Charles Gagnon. Looking at the tracking data, the ADSB stuff, it shows they've got two DHC-6 Twin Otters. One seems to be stored in Cotonou, that's TYBAB. The other, TYBAC, was last seen flying to Lomé, April 25th this year?
Yeah. Now, contrast that two small turboprops with Qatar Airways. The sources lay out Qatar's scale. 358 aircraft, 191 destinations, 258 routes, nearly 600 daily flights. The difference is just massive. It shows the scale of the ambition, but also, frankly, the challenge. What's really fascinating is why Qatar might even hint at interest in partnering here. It's got to be about longer-term strategy, maybe regional influence, things beyond just the immediate market numbers. You see national development goals driving these pushes, but turning interest into a working airline partnership. That's the tricky part.
Absolutely, that gap is huge. Okay, from building potentially from scratch, let's shift to an existing airline planning way, way ahead. Skymark in Japan. There was a stock exchange filing, May 22nd, saying Skymark Airlines is buying 6 Boeing 737-8 seats.
And the details are deliveries won't even start until 2030. These will have CFM International engines.
Right, and this isn't replacing older orders. It's on top of an existing order they had for 8 more 737-8s and 3 of the larger 737-10s. So they're really stocking up on Boeing's new generation 737s.
And if you look at their current setup, the sources say Skymark flies 29 B757-800s right now, the oldest generation. The first of those new 737 days from the previous order. That's set to arrive in 2026. And those are meant to start replacing the older AN800s. They're mainly domestic, flying to about 12 airports inside Japan.
Okay, and why the new order now for 2030?
Well, a Skymark spokesperson apparently said that with Boeing's delivery timelines being so long these days, they basically had to order now if they want planes to handle growth expected 5-6 years down the line. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How do airlines predict demand that far out, especially when, markets, fuel costs, travel habits can change pretty fast? Ordering now for 2030 deliveries just highlights the incredible lead times they're dealing with because of manufacturer backlogs. It's strategic, sure, but you're locking yourself into plans based on forecasts that could be, well, almost a decade old by the time the last plane shows up. That's a big gamble.
Planning for 2030.
Yeah.
That's definitely long-range thinking. Okay, let's switch gears again. From future plans to resolving past issues, we're looking at Bombardier Aerospace. The information you shared says the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, has closed an investigation into the company.
Yeah, and this was specifically about Bombardier selling CRJ-1000 regional jets to Garuda Indonesia, maybe 10 years ago or so.
The timeline seems to be, Bombardier got the word from the DOJ on April 1st this year, told the stock exchange May 1st. And the investigation itself had been going since early 2020.
Right. And the background here is important. Between 2012 and 2015, Garuda got 18 of those CRJs. But it turns out the whole procurement was corrupt. A former Garuda CEO, others too, were actually charged and convicted over it in Indonesia. And the source had mentioned this wasn't just the Bombardier deal. Airbus and Rolls-Royce deals were caught up in it too.
So definite misconduct in the deal itself involving Garuda. But the key outcome for Bombardier, according to that filing, is no charges were laid against the corporation or any of its directors, officers, or employees.
That's the bottom line from the DOJ side. The sources also mentioned Bombardier started its own internal investigation, and that sounds like it might still be ongoing.
Yeah.
And, connecting the dots a bit. The sources also mentioned some other recent cases where U.S. authorities seem to be wrapping things up, like a lawsuit involving Southwest, maybe talks on the Boeing 737 MAX settlement. Not directly related, but it could suggest a phase where some older regulatory actions are concluding. It just underlines how complex the legal and compliance world is for manufacturers working globally. Deals from a decade ago can still trigger investigations years later.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does it all tell us? We've got potential new airlines aiming high with global partners, existing carriers making huge fleet bets 5 years out,
Right.
and a major manufacturer seeing a long investigation end without charges.
Yeah, these snippets from the sources, they really give you glimpses into different corners of the aviation world. You see market entry ambitions, the really long-term nature of fleet planning, and then the ongoing reality of compliance and dealing with past actions. It's a snapshot, really, of how the industry juggles growth, planning, and accountability all the time across borders.
It's always fascinating how these different threads just weave together into this complex picture of global aviation.
It really is. And looking at these specific events just makes you think about the ripple effects, doesn't it? And here's maybe where it gets really interesting to think about. Consider this. When a company like Bombardier here goes through a long international investigation related to past conduct and comes out without charges, how does that experience potentially change how they approach deals and compliance going forward? Does it shift their risk assessment? Does it send signals to others in the industry or even to regulators, something to mull over?
Absolutely. A lot to think about there. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the sources today.